Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Within Us. Today, I'm super honored to have Michelle Hummer with me, and she owns her own coaching company called Mayday Mentoring Company, and she also is a quantum biofeedback specialist. So we've talked a little bit. I've just recently met her, and we've had some super interesting conversations, and I am so excited to talk to you today. I don't know where this is going to go, but I have a feeling it is going to be fun. So let's start out with the easy question. So what is biofeedback or quantum biofeedback specialist? So what does that mean?
It's a type of energy therapy. So biofeedback is any kind of machine that reads what goes on inside of the body. So I could show it to you. There's a little computer behind me right there.
Anytime we hear the word biofeedback, there's a machine,
Yeah, a blood pressure cuff can be a biofeedback machine.
Okay, that's good to know.
Because so it's measuring something that's happening inside of you.
Okay.
And the computers that I have are running a diagnostic test on somebody. It asks the person's body 7,000 questions. The person's body sends back a response. This is what I can fix. And then it puts it in the order in which the body is able to start resolving its issues.
Okay.
And I have been a firm believer in energy my whole life. I believe in God, and I believe that the spiritual realm is energy.
And everything is energy.
Everything has a vibration. And so this machine says, if you're angry and to be balanced where you're not angry, I'm going to make up a number because I don't know it, would be resonating at 500 megahertz and you're resonating at 200 megahertz, then you are off. So then you would be considered to be angry. You would have the emotion of anger. So then I would feed frequency to you and bring balance to that for a couple days. Because once somebody has a treatment, the frequency stays in their body for 3 days, trying to, resolve whatever is there.
So bringing it back to like balance.
It's whatever its neutral state is.
Okay.
Yep.
So
whatever neutral or balanced state.
Okay. So how is it reading your frequencies?
Well, I'm not a quantum physicist, so I don't know the answer to that. So I'll give you the best answer I know how.
Well, I mean, is it something hooked up to you? How is it? Like, let's do.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it with a harness.
Okay.
You can do it through a harness that's hooked to your head and your hands, or you can do it with at a distance where you put the picture of the person in, you put their name, address, city, and state they were born, and their phone number that identifies where they're at in the universe, and the frequency will know where to send it. So you can do it in person or you can do it at a distance.
So do you find any difference between the distance? Because I mean, there is
I actually hired a scientist in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I charged some water in person, and then I charged some water that I sent to my girlfriend, and she sent me a picture of it, and that was 2,000 miles away. And I took both of them to the scientist for him to read. He put little I don't know what you call them, little things like little, I don't know what they are, things in the water to measure.
Like a node or something.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper word is, but these long little stems that he stuck in the water, and he measured them, and they both measured exactly the same. And then he wanted to know, why did I want to know that? And I explained why. And he was like, well, I've never heard of this technology. So, he said it seems like reasonable that it would work. But yeah, I did hire a scientist to find out whether or not you did it in person or if I did it at a distance, if it worked any differently. And it did not. I needed that for myself to make sure that if I talked to somebody or promoted it, I knew for sure 100% that it worked exactly the same. And it did.
Yeah.
So I was pretty excited about that. And that shows you how powerful.
I'm surprised either.
And that shows you how powerful energy really is.
It is. Oh my gosh. So now once we get this feedback, so I have a question. So it's doing the frequency of all our organs and everything in our body. So is the frequency of, say, the base frequency of, say, of my heart or whatever, is it the same as yours? Do we all have our own individual signal?
No, I think, well, I think there's two answers to that. One is each organ does resonate at a healthy megahertz or frequency. Every one of them has the same. And then I think we have our own energetic signature in the universe, as well as each piece of us. Does that make sense? Because I would think our consciousness would have its own frequency, and then your body parts would have their own frequency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's almost like it's like, here's my frequency and then here's my heart frequency, which is maybe the same as others, but this is how it is in relation to me, almost like a hierarchical kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so it sends these frequencies out to fix it. Like, how much can you do at once? So if you're saying, okay, now I've got this feedback, this, biofeedback, and I don't know, Michelle has a bunch of what not wrong. I'm like, whatever.
So I have a test. So
what to do first?
I have a reactivity report, and I send your body a questionnaire. Your body sends back it sends back a response to the questionnaire. There's 7,000 different frequencies it's being tested for in that moment. The body tells the machine, the computer software, what it's able to start working on and resolve. So I then send frequency to whatever that is wrong. Or whatever is, I don't even want to say wrong, but whatever is out of balance in the body.
I like to term it as like disease, whatever is in disease in the body. And that doesn't mean like a disease, like you have a disease, but it's a dis-ease. Something's not at ease or in balance. Is that kind of what?
Yeah. And the report shows that. So there is no guessing on the human being's part, because the person who is getting tested, their body is telling the software what it needs.
Yeah.
So their body is in charge of whatever they're getting. And then you send frequency to whatever those pieces are. And it's not just organ parts. It's like, I'll read you some of the stuff off of this. It can be allergies. It can be amino. I'm going to read the list really quick. Allergies, amino acids, bacteria, bones, brain function, chromosomes, circulatory issues, which would be the heart issues, dental, digestive, disease, drainage, ears, enzymes, eyes, funguses, glands, heavy metals, hormones, lymph system, meridian points, miasms, which are long-standing issues, vaccines, parasites, organs, toxins, spinal, nerves, respiratory, vitamins, miscellaneous stuff, viruses, sinuses, pesticides, muscles. That's just on one report that you have all of those different things. Then you can do emotional stuff. You can do emotional conflict.
You can, like, how does it handle emotions? Because I personally feel like emotions are like stuck energy, stuck traumas, or stuck false beliefs that you have an emotion around.
Absolutely. And part of what I do is that I try to help you find, as I'm doing the treatment, I try to help you find where your false belief systems are, so we can unwind those out of your system, and it can make you holding on to the energy even better. So I've done some heart healing training for a couple of years with a lady named Susan Bowman in Alabama. And that's been very beneficial to help people identify false belief systems and release them.
I think we all have those.
Absolutely.
In our indoctrinated world, I think we all have false belief systems that.
Well, you can see that from one generation to the next.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. That's such a good point. Yeah. We can see it in front of our eyes.
Look at the millennial generation. They're just, the stuff that we grew up with, like just from the male female aspect. The very first job I had, my boss was behaving badly. And when I went to call them out, they were like, let's just then don't do this. It was my fault that he was behaving badly. So now the millennials, they don't put up with anything. They're like, if you behave badly, they call you out and they put you on display.
So true.
So you can see that.
Yeah, it is true.
We were taught to be quiet.
It is. And it's so funny because I've just been listening to a few things about this too. Like the millennials and like my kids, which would be Gen Z kids, our even impressions of freedom is different, because our perception of freedom when we were younger, and I think we're both Gen Xers, was very different, even though it was, whatever. but our perception of freedom and our kids' perception of freedom is so different too. And now think of these new generation coming up now. They've experienced lockdowns and all this stuff. Now think of normalizing that as the generations go on. That's pretty darn dangerous if you ask me. So
Absolutely.
unlocking those and what is true and what is not true. I mean, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
not just that alone, but again, emotions and traumas and things that we've kind of all had to deal with, and we carry them in our shoulder, or someone who has chronic shoulder pain, and then maybe they were in a car accident or something, and you do everything and the shoulder pain just doesn't seem to go away.
I feel like the one way to sum all that up is we have to learn how to walk in our personal power. And as we've learned to walk in our personal power and we're true and we're honoring to ourselves, that is reflected in our bodies. If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, whether it be marriage, dating, jobs, parents, whatever it could be, when you're in those relationships, your body is telling you that it doesn't like the disrespect. It is keeping a score. I think there's actually a book out called that. But your body is keeping a score of what you are emotionally, mentally doing. I mean, your mentality, your thoughts are where you live. Your thoughts are where you live. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you see on the outside. Look at somebody who's super rich and has success and is depressed and miserable. You really have to learn how to manage your mind in order for you to keep a hold of your personal power. And if you keep a hold of your personal power, then it's a lot harder to be manipulated and to be brainwashed, because you understand how that stuff works. And I mean, they use the law of repetition as a real thing.
Well, propaganda and symbols and imagery and saying even words that are a lie over and over again,
right. Your subconscious is designed to believe that.
Well, here's the easy one. We live in a democracy. No, we're not. We're a republic. We have a democratic form of government in here, but we're not a democracy. We are a republic. But they keep feeding that over and over again in your mind. And
you believe it.
And then you believe it. Oh, we are about, no, we're a republic. And then people, just with, super things, silly things like that. Well, it's not silly, but with things like that. So the unraveling is, all right, so I've believed this lie, my whole life. I've believed this lie, whatever it is. I mean, put anything in there. I mean, there's a million things to choose from. So, pick a lie, say, I don't know, what's a good one that you've been told that here's a good one for wealth people, because I talk a lot about wealth. Money's bad. People who have money are bad. This has been programmed into so many of us, including my dad. My dad, he went by Rocky, and his famous saying was I'm Rock, not Rockefeller. He always used to say that. And that gets programmed into your mind. And think of when you were a kid, especially my age.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah, that was another one.
It actually comes from trees.
It does. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I never made
really does.
But right now,
but they really said that. You're like, wait. I said to I'm like, wait. No, it really actually does, because they have to cut a tree down and make the paper for the money. So money doesn't grow on trees.
I know. And when it's digital, where's that growing from? I don't know.
Right.
It's just created out of thin air. But
you can't create money out of nothing, but you can.
What is money? Money is it's just our determined form of currency. So what is it really worth? It's worth what we say it's worth. It's not really worth it.
That's right.
So now we have this belief that we've been told over and over again. We know nothing else in our.
Well, here's one. People believe they have to be sick to die.
Oh.
People believe that in the end, that as they age, they have to wear themselves out and they have to die. They have to get sick and die. Who said that? I mean,
I don't know.
Where did that idea come from? And people say it all the time. And they'll say,
what did he die of? What did they die of?
But I think even before that, you see two people when they head towards retirement. There's two mindsets that are heading to retirement. You either become the person you always wanted to be, or you just sit and wait to die. And there's various ways of sitting to wait to die. But there's not a lot of people who are aging and saying, oh, I'm going to keep alive and I'm going to keep growing as I grow older, because they've been conditioned to believe that you're supposed to wear yourself out And this is all the things that happen as you age. And I don't believe that's true.
I agree with you. And if you think about it, words are energy, words are vibration. So if you're saying, well, just, I'm just waiting around to die. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm here to live another day. I'm living in
I want to learn
want to
something new today.
learn, I want to do this. Like that's
Yeah.
sending out a whole different frequency too. So with the
Yes.
biofeedback machine, so I have this false belief that, money's evil, rich people are evil, all this stuff. So how does it, is it those types of things? Like that's
Well,
not
no, it's going to
so
work
how does
more
it
on your
unwind? Okay.
it's gonna work on your self-esteem. First of
Okay.
all, there is no magic button that somebody can push and just be okay.
Of
You
course.
have to unwind. We're like an onion. We have to peel
Yes.
back each layer a little bit at a time. And as you peel back layers, you find false belief systems in every layer that you're peeling back. So the machine it's accumulative. So let's say this week I send you 100 frequencies and we start here. Your
Okay.
body may keep 20 of those the first week. You never know what a person's going to keep. Let's say you keep 20. Well, next week we already start with 20 and we give you another 100. Now you're working with 120. Now
Okay.
your body keeps 30. Now you're starting with 30. And then you're going to add another 100. Do you follow what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I
as
do.
each week that you do more work, you add frequency to the person. They resonate at a higher vibration. You're going to start to see the little, lenses open up in their eyes internally inside of them to go, wait, I used to believe XYZ. I'm not sure I believe that anymore. It kind of is like an organic process
Okay.
once you start to elevate their frequency.
Yeah, because it's
The
like the domino effect.
Mhm.
Like once you kind
Yep.
of start unraveling one, as long as you, and I'm sure like anything else, people can have resistance and we have free will. So you can probably
Absolutely.
subconsciously go like, that machine ain't gonna work for me.
Yeah,
You could
you
be just
can.
the opposite and be like, I can't wait to do this machine every day. And
But people do that
work
with
with
prescription
Michelle.
drugs too.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, you can block a prescription from working. You can block anything you want from working, or you can be open to it working. So you're absolutely right. Your free will matters in the way that you receive everything in the world.
Yeah. And in our mindset, like if you're
Yeah.
trying to lose weight, like you were explaining something that had happened to you the other day. Like if you're losing weight and you're on this thing and you haven't done anything about it for 3 months. And I've come across this in my whole life, in my own life over different things. And all of a sudden something clicks and you're not sure what it is, but all of a sudden now you're doing the thing. And it's a total mind shift thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even see where or how it came, but all of a sudden something shifts. And now you're like, okay, well, now I'm doing this. Now I'm just doing it. And now you just keep doing it. And sometimes I find it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that means you changed your energy around whatever you were believing or whatever you were trying
Yeah.
to accomplish. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's a great example of like changing your energy in a way. And again, you can do things like this without a machine. This is what I say is kind of like a biohacker's secret, that you can start stuffing energy everywhere in the person's body, and it makes it easier for them to grow and to have those epiphanies and to have those understandings.
Yeah, because if we truly are in what some call stimulation, or if we are, I mean, you see over and again, we're in a mathematical world, but da 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 da, and everybody equates it to a computer program. So it's almost like, well, if you have a computer program and you want to change something, you need something to override it. Sometimes it can be
Yes.
your own mind, and the quantum biofeedback machine can do just that too. It's like something needs to be overridden, override the false belief, the actions that you're doing because of the false belief, and then change those things around.
That's why I couple the coaching with it to help like talk people through, to give them something new to focus their energy on. Because I've also had people, if you give them energy, they'll use it in the wrong way. So I like to help them, guide them into using it in a positive way, how they can focus the energy I just gave them onto something positive in a positive way.
Yeah,
That's really helpful too.
that is really. And I just learned a new word this weekend, and the word was loosh. Have you ever heard of it?
No, what does that mean?
It's our vital energy, the energy that it's LOOSH. And I read a whole,
Ooh.
I heard this word and I'm like, I don't really understand what that means. And then I looked it up and I found a really great article describing it. But it's like you have this like vital energy. And then when we're feeling like down and low, you get like those energy vampires. We all know people that are like that, that just suck the energy out of us. And we're most
Yeah.
vulnerable when our energies are out of balance and stuff like that. But I think the loosh, from my understanding of what I read, was like this vital energy source that fills your body. And sometimes there's other people that just want that. You know, like you've
Yes.
ever been around someone and they're like an energy suck because you're just vibrating at such this high frequency, and other people are like, I want some of that too. And they almost like suck it from you. What do they call them? Energy vampires. It's so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people that are narcissistic, so psychopathic, you know,
Yeah.
different things like that, they're masters. They're actually masters. They're coping mechanisms. They're masters at taking your energy. It's really part of their training as to how they use their minds. They are really good at it.
Yes. And I think it's
Mhm.
important to realize when we're doing any kind of work like this, that we have to protect our own energy, or even just watching TV. If you think about something as watching a movie or a show or a program, or, you know, God forbid what news
Yeah,
you're
I don't watch
watching.
things that are like what I don't want to bring
Yeah,
in my life. Like I don't watch
I
things that are
agree.
violent
Or I think you have to like
or
put up this protective kind of like feel
yeah.
that like this is just pretend. Like this isn't
Mhm.
real. This isn't, so I think we do
Yeah,
have to protect
detach
ourselves.
emotionally from it.
Yeah.
Because
So we're
where
not
you put your
taking it
emotions is where your energy is going. So
in.
yeah, if you can detach, I have a lot of people and a lot of clients who talk. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
That's okay. There's
um,
probably thunder you can hear here in the background. So
um, a lot of times people don't really understand how to hold on to their own personal energy and like, they get triggered. This is a new thing. Like people talk a lot about triggering.
okay.
I'm talking about how do you overcome the trigger? It isn't somebody else's problem to deal with your trigger. It's your problem to
Yeah.
deal with your trigger. You know what I mean? Because when you can learn to be uh, in any environment and not have it change you, that's
Mhm.
where that's when you're solid and you're planted, you're rooted and grounded, when you're not blown over by a tree when somebody comes in and says something ignorant. I'll give you an example. I had these two girls one time when I worked at this place, and when I first started, the one girl would come in and tell me all about how the other girl said all this mean stuff to me, and then the other girl would come in and tell me the same thing about the other one. So let's
Oh,
call them Jen and Carrie. So Jen would come in and tell me about Carrie, and Carrie would come in and tell me Jen said all this stuff about you. Now I would never give them an ounce of my energy, so they would talk and I would keep working, and then at the end I would say, oh, are you finished? I would wait for awkward silence. I'd say, oh, are
okay.
you finished? And they would say, yeah. And I'd say, okay, you can go back to work now. If you
Yeah.
notice, I just stayed
Yeah.
unplugged. I let them say what they wanted to say, get it off their chest, and then I let them go back to work. But they could never figure out how to emotionally manipulate me because I wouldn't give it to them.
Okay.
So 2 years of this goes on, and finally she comes in and says, Carrie comes in and says, we really like you. We want to include you and stuff. And I laughed like internally. I didn't say a word to her. I kept going. And at the end, she said, we want you to go to such and such with us on Saturday. And I let there be awkward silence again. And I said, oh, are you finished? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, you can go back to work. I wouldn't give her any of my energy, whether she rejected me or
Mhm.
accepted me. None of that mattered.
Dang.
What mattered to me was me. And I
Okay.
knew that their behavior was toxic. So I just didn't give them any energy to use any of that back on me.
Hmm. It's, you could use a similar analogy probably with our kids, like the things that we enable
Mm-hmm.
our kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly guilty of it over my life. I mean, some things I'd let them get away with, and other things it was like, no, not really.
Yeah. So energy is a thing that we're using all day, every day. Whether we realize we're doing it or not, we are engaging with energy. And, I believe in God, and he does say that he refers to Satan as the prince of the air. And how I like to look at that is that's a negative thought,
Mm,
right? That is a negative idea or a thought that's trying to enter you, and you get to decide what you want to do. But
okay.
it starts out as an energy,
Mm,
right? You ever hear somebody say, I caught a feeling? Well,
yes.
Yeah, because somebody's putting out a vibration and you
Yeah.
get to decide whether you're agreeing with that vibration or not.
Yeah. Because if we are all this consciousness and we're all in the same place at the same time, then whatever we're putting out there, we're then attracting that thing, whatever it is, that thought is probably most likely some kind of a thought. And then the thought leads to the action, the feeling, the emotion, whatever ends up becoming.
Like attracts like, right?
Yes.
So like attracts like. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, that saying.
Mhm.
It's true. You have to change the energy behind, what you want before you can get it, because you have to change the energy behind it.
Mhm.
And I like I said, I do believe in God, and I believe in a lot of the stuff he was talking about is energy. And I see the Bible in that way from an energetic standpoint.
Mhm.
There's a saying, oh, I hate this saying. The kids say it. Sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Yeah,
And I think that's a lie, because that's like saying I'm going to speak a curse over
I
somebody
agree.
and that'll never affect them. But we all know that if you repeat something that's negative over somebody, which is what I would call a curse, then you are affecting them, because eventually their subconscious will believe that it's true.
Yeah, and it could be a stored emotion that is a trauma that is now blocking you consciously or unconsciously from moving forward in life, whatever that looks like. So
Yeah.
with the biofeedback machine, a lot of it is it I also identifying like subconscious beliefs, because I do feel a lot of
Yes.
the thoughts and beliefs that we have are sort of subconscious, but they're running our conscious mind.
I
So
think
like,
I
we
think
have,
there's statistics for that. I think it's
yeah,
90% or something.
yeah,
Like
like our
90% of your
subconscious mind
subconscious
is
brain
running the
is running
show.
your life. And
Yeah.
so if you want to make changes and you want to grow, like one time I was praying and I was like, I want to use more than 10% of my brain. And God was like, okay, well, you can do that anytime. You just have to be self-aware. And self-awareness
Mhm.
starts the journey of like looking at and examining what you think and why you think it.
Mhm. And then
Right? You have
uncovering the truth of it, like you said, if you have
yes,
a false belief, is really looking
right.
at that belief and saying,
That's what
is this thing that I'm believing true? Is it
that's
true
really
at
what a
its
trigger
core
is.
level? It's not true because someone said it to me. It's not true because someone taught it to me. It's not
Right.
true because I heard it over and over again. Is it really, really true? And I think, like you had said, that's where we kind of have to go in, because the things
Mhm.
that are around us sometimes aren't projecting the truth.
That's true. That's true. I think the biofeedback machine is amazing because, like I said, it's kind of like a biohacking machine where you
Yeah.
get to fill yourself up with
Overriding that
energy.
subconscious. Yeah.
Yes, and then you get to
Visions
decide,
mind
oh,
and
okay,
changing.
now I can be more self-aware in this area because it's showing me, here's the hidden. There's actually an actual panel that's called hidden issues.
Mhm.
And you can go in there and look to see what the hidden issues are that you're dealing with. And then that gives you a starting point. You can
Interesting.
go back into like different ages that you dealt with stress in your life, and you can release whatever residual energy is stuck in your
Okay.
body from the certain ages. Um, there's so many things you can deal with emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. You can deal with every level.
How aware do you think that we need to be of these things? Like I've mentioned before on my podcast that I healed myself of PCOS in my
Hmm.
early 30s, and it took about 2 years, no drugs, no medicine, just pure energy work. And a lot of it was stuck emotions. And most of it, to be truthful, I don't even know what it was. And I don't think it was beneficial for me to
To
know
know,
what it was. So
right?
how do you feel about that? I personally believe it. Like, what's the point? Like, it's kind of the talk therapy thing. Why should I have to talk about it over and over again? Because like you said, where your attention goes, energy flows.
Yep.
So aren't you just bringing more energy to that trauma, to that thing that
So
you're
what I
talking
do is
about?
I send frequency to the trauma, whatever the thing is that we're dealing with, and then I give you something positive to focus on. I
Okay.
don't I don't read everything. So I might work on somebody for an hour and a half. I'm not reading all this negative stuff that's coming up to
Yeah.
them. I'm talking to them about what can they focus on? What do they want in their life? How
Love
can
that.
they be self-aware so that they can focus on
Yeah.
what they want? And that helps them to be able to move forward in their thoughts, because the first place you have to start is the energy. than the thoughts. Like, how do I
Mhm.
move myself forward? How do I become self-aware? Those are things that you have to start with, because so
Yeah.
many of us are not self-aware of what's going on inside.
I think that that's so true. And I think you had just said earlier, I think it was when we were talking, you said, I believe that I am the kingdom. You know, we say the kingdom dwells inside of me. I think there's a lot of truth to self-help and self-care, where I've come across a bunch of people in my life that are like, oh, well, for the greater good, for the greater good. But it's like, me being spiritually aware, me being awakened, me being healthy on this vibrational level, I think
Mm-hmm.
that when you tend to yourself, it's kind of like that airplane mask thing.
Yeah,
Like,
you have to put the
I'm tending to
mask on
my
you.
own self-care and I'm healing internally, that's going to spread out. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I want to dissect into myself, be the best version of myself that I can be, because sharing that outwards is so much better than me giving up this or giving that up that, doing things that I don't believe in, believing things that I don't believe in, or the greater good, or whatever it is. Like, it's just not true. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like when I say I believe that the kingdom is within me, I believe that I do believe in God. I believe He is in me, and we are in a conversation. And quantum physics, I believe He is the quantum field. And
Mm,
that's where I get my information from.
okay,
That's
yeah,
how I
I would
know what to
agree.
do
Yeah,
for
I do
me.
too.
Right. So, some of the most powerful things I've ever said to myself are in prayer, to say, okay, I don't know what I don't know, but you do, Lord,
Mm,
meaning that's the quantum field. And then I get the download of what it is, the next thing that I need to look at or focus on. And teaching a person how to be responsible for themselves isn't like, how do I make money for myself? It's, how do I know who I am in this world? And how do I function as I'm already whole? Because there's kind of this, I don't know what it is, this blanket viewpoint people have that there's something wrong with them. They're intrinsically bad and
yeah.
there's something wrong with them.
And those are
Well,
more false beliefs that need to, like, kind of get
yes,
out of there as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because I do believe that, like, there's these always these theories of thoughts on, is it on the individual, or do you let go of the individual for the group? I think the individual, like you said, if the kingdom is within us, then it kind of debunks the whole thing, right?
I think the individual and the I think we are two things at the same time,
Yes.
simultaneously.
Yes.
We
So you
are
can't
the
ignore one.
individual and we are a part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because
we're both, and we have to learn
yeah.
how to function in both.
Because, like you said, what we're putting out into the quantum field, which is where everybody's getting which everybody, whether you realize it or not, are connecting to, the more
That's
good
right.
that we can put out there than it is for the benefit of the good. But I do feel like it always starts inside here.
I believe it starts inside as well. I
Yeah.
mean, you know how many times I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, I have depression or I have anxiety."
Mhm.
And after I start talking to them, a couple weeks go by and I'm working with them and I'm like, you know, you may have anxiety and depression, but it's coming from a cause.
Mm,
Like, maybe you're in a bad relationship, you're in an abusive relationship, your boss is an abuser, whatever. When you start really looking at it, they're only looking at the energy or the sign of, I have anxiety, and they
okay.
want to take a pill to get rid of the anxiety, but
Yeah.
they never know how to deal with themselves or the other person. Relationships, I think, are probably the hardest part of life, is dealing with each other,
Yeah.
because half of us have not done there's a meme that I saw on Facebook, and it said, the reason you're in therapy is because of the people who wouldn't go to therapy. I was like, that's really funny, because if
True.
you don't look at yourself, this is
Mhm.
how you change the world. You change
Yeah.
you.
I totally, like, yeah, you are the change holder. I completely agree with that. And
Yeah.
I always like tell my daughter, especially, or other people around me, it's like, people aren't going to change. When you
No.
change, then the way people
That's when they do
react to
change.
you are
They
going to
do change.
change.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
So people aren't going to just change and you do nothing. But the more
Right.
that you change for the better and be the person that you want to be, the people around you are going to change in response to that.
So I always tell people there's a difference between commanding respect and demanding respect.
Oh,
When you're demanding respect, you're coming from a childlike temper tantrum place.
okay.
When you're commanding it, you're showing somebody, this is what I'm going to do. So let's walk through that. So demanding is something like your boss calls you and he's yelling, you're like, don't talk to me like that. And you're getting all upset and you just keep saying that, versus your boss calls you and he starts carrying on and you just click. That's commanding it, because what you're saying is, I'm not tolerating that.
Yeah.
That's different, right? So, but most people won't do things like that because they're afraid of losing their job, right? Because they believe their income is from their job, not from what they need to create from inside. Does that make sense?
It really does. And I think so many of us, it's like this fear that looms over us, like this carrot that's dangled. And then you do things that you normally wouldn't do. Like I was saying before, you disregard your values, you do things you wouldn't normally do. I mean, it kind of goes on. And then who are you? You're really not you.
Right. Yeah. That's why all this deprogramming has to happen, because we've had a lot of programming and we don't even really realize that we're getting it. You know, sit still, shut up. That starts in school. And if you have something
go to
to
the
say,
bathroom, if you got to leave, you've got to ask permission to pee. Like those kinds of things. It's like, oh my gosh, what have we?
You have to have some kind of order, but not to the point where you have to control whether somebody can, I mean, it's just some of the stuff that we're taught is just, some of it's good, some of it's not good, right? Just like in our childhood, some of our childhood was good, some of it wasn't, right? There is no perfect person on the planet, so everybody has to deal with something and they have to overcome something, right? And childhood is a good place that a lot of this stuff starts, some of these false belief systems, right?
And if you look at the ripple effect, the more that I work on myself, the more these other people that are not now on the same vibration as I am are going to fade away. And you're just going to attract more people that you do get along with, that you have fun with, that you have great conversations with, and those kinds of things. So
some people, I call it like putting people in the right seats of the bus. So sometimes I'm going to have this person that's my friend and they're in the front seat of my bus. And my bus is filled with friends and they're all in different seats. And people move around on that bus. Sometimes the person that's in the back, they have an epiphany and they move to the front of the bus. And right. And I am being moved around on my friends' buses. You follow me?
Yeah.
So I don't look at it like finality. I look at it like more flowy. And sometimes somebody's still my friend. And then there's other times people are toxic that they need to go right to the back of the bus. It's not that you don't love them and care for them, but it's that they can't be in the front of your bus at this time because they're not willing to grow. And that's their choice. They can do that, but then they get to stay in the back of the bus where I just love them from afar.
Yes. And sometimes we put ourselves in the back of the bus. We're like, yeah, today's not a good day. I'm heading to the back of the bus so I don't affect you all's energy.
Yeah.
And
I feel like energy is such a
part.
Yes, absolutely. Self-awareness is just humongous. I mean, there's times where I have laid in bed and thought to myself, oh my gosh, I did XYZ. That was so not cool and so unaware. And then there's other times where I've been like, oh, that other person was really unaware. I see where they were coming from and what they thought they were doing or saying, that they thought they were right. So, energy and self-awareness, all of that goes hand in hand. All of these things matter. And I don't think we have, you go to talk therapy and it's cool. It can be really helpful because that might be the place that somebody's at. Is all they need to do is get a little bit of advice and release it. But I think most people are dealing with long-term traumas and they are grown up now and they're like, I don't really know what to do with this. Right? I keep seeing that I keep repeating these patterns and I really don't know what to do to break the patterns because they're not aware.
But they're aware enough to know that they need to break the patterns. So it's like, so definitely, I think there is some movement. And I think what happens, and I've kind of seen it with my mother, like you get this victimhood mentality and you don't know how to be anything but that victim. That victimhood is your identity. And I see so many people, especially today, wrapped up into like this identity to something that's sort of either within or without themselves. Like if you think all these things have happened to you, and maybe they have, but
Well,
some
I
people
like to
just
say
go
it like
break
this.
free of this
Even
input.
even if you get, like, let's say something horrible happened to me, like I get raped, I
Yep.
still have to get over the rape. It doesn't matter if the
Yes.
guy comes and apologizes to me or
Mhm.
not. I still have to process what happened. That's an internal process, not
Mhm.
external. So he could say sorry and he might not say sorry. Either way, I still have to process what just happened to me.
Yes.
Um,
Doesn't
right?
change the
So
fact of what happened.
no, it doesn't change the fact of what happened. And we want to, I feel like right now in society, we do a lot of finger pointing instead of like, okay, it happened. It is
Yeah.
what it is. Now I have to figure out, how do I release the pain that's come from that? And that's what I call being an overcomer. We don't really teach, one of the things I talk to my clients about is perseverance, persistence,
Okay.
being an overcomer, not saying, oh, this happened to me. And then we talk about that same scenario over and over. It's like, okay, it did happen. We'll validate that validate that it happened. Now, how can you focus? Take your energy and focus on what can you glean from that
Mm.
thing, and how can you move forward? If there isn't anything to glean, maybe somebody just literally did a random act of whatever. How can you move forward from that and be
Yeah.
better from what happened, instead of pointing the finger and being like, you shouldn't have done it?
Mhm.
That's great. Things shouldn't happen, but we live in a fallen world and bad things do happen. And sometimes they take us out in the middle of it. And we still have to learn how to overcome
Mhm.
ourselves and what other people have done to us.
Yeah. And I think one of the things along those same lines that we've really grown away from is people taking accountability on both sides.
Yes.
Like taking accountability for what happened to you, and then the person that doing the wrong, them being held accountable for it as well.
Sure.
But if you
Yeah.
don't take accountability for the things that have gone wrong with you, it's kind of like the same thing. You can ignore it till the cows come home and not deal with it.
It's
But
going
then
to keep
that's what
coming back.
manifests in your life over
Yes.
and over. Like you had
Yes.
said before, why do these patterns? Why do I keep repeating these patterns? Because you haven't taken accountability or taken action to process whatever it was that
Right.
you're doing.
Most of the time when we have something bad happen, I mean, like, look at the stuff that's happening right now where people are not being held accountable. They can go in
Yes.
and rob somebody, and then the
Yeah.
cop who holds them responsible is getting into trouble. That's absurd. But the guy still, whether that's right or wrong, we're always going to have right or wrong. Whether it's right or wrong, you still have to get past it. It's
Yeah.
like, I remember one time I wanted to complain to my mom about something that she did in my childhood. And she goes, okay, well, you're an adult. You've been an adult for 20 years. She's like, so that's on you, not on me. I did the best I could.
Yeah.
And I was
Because you
like,
know
wow,
what?
that is
Sometimes,
so profound.
and you know what? Sometimes people, they're like, well, whatever. Why would I did it and I'm not feeling guilty about it and I'm good with it, move on. So it's like we can't control other people's how they handle accountability, whether they do or they don't, or the manner in which they have them, or the manner in which they like
To be
take on that
happy,
accountability.
healthy, and successful, you can't, because those are the things that'll keep you, when you go to a job and you haven't resolved your issues with your mom or your dad, and you go into your job and somebody triggers you from that, that's on you. You have to figure out, why
Yeah.
do I feel that way? Why am I still handling myself this way? And you go within to say, how can I overcome this so that I don't feel this way, and I don't act this way, and I don't think this way?
And it's probably the same with guilt, when you think,
Sure,
because you're
absolutely. Guilt and shame.
constantly, oh my
Oh
gosh,
gosh.
guilt and shame is
Do you know
like,
how many
I've talked about it so
people,
much.
women, oh my Lord, the guilt and
Mhm.
shame women come to the
Oh my
table with,
gosh,
like, if
right?
I'm not perfect and I haven't done this and I haven't done that, it's like, oh my gosh. And the guilt and shame can kind of flip into like this self-victimization.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Right?
Hmm.
Like the guilt, shame, regret. Like it's that whole
Yep.
pile of the mess that if you're not looking
The
at,
mom guilt. Hmm.
gosh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah.
And some of it is hard, and others are like, well, I did the best that I could at the time.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
do
everybody does the
believe that
best that
that's
they can at
mostly
the
true.
time.
I do too. I believe most people,
That's what people
and
are doing.
and whether this is naive or not, I do believe that most people are not intentionally causing harm. I
Yeah,
really do.
I
Maybe
believe that
that's
too.
naive, but I
I
really do
believe
believe
people
that.
are doing, yeah, I believe people are
Yeah.
doing the best they can
Yeah,
with
there's
whatever tools
obviously
they were
a whole
given.
band of exceptions to that. Basically
Yes.
whoever is running this shit show down here, but
Right.
you people, I don't even know, but like, yeah, anyways. But yeah, like some people just like, I really do believe that they're doing the best that they can and they really
Yes.
intend no harm. If I'm driving down the road and I get into a car accident for whatever reason, was it intentional? No, probably not. And most people, they feel that guilt for so long if they've caused,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it's like even drunk driving. Do people drunk driving intentionally go to hurt someone? No.
No.
They
No,
intentionally
they
knew
think,
that there was a chance of that happening. But did they mean
right.
to kill someone? It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be held accountable. But it wasn't like they went
Right.
out that day and said, I'm going to get
Let
ripped
me
ass
murder
drunk
somebody.
and go
Right.
kill someone. Like, I don't think that's
Right.
on most people's minds. But it doesn't make it
Right.
good in any way, shape, or form. And they need to be held accountable for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you took the chance, yeah.
Yeah, because you knowingly took a chance that could have I guess it's that risk factor. What's the risk factor that I'm going to do with whatever the action is? The risk of whether it's harm to myself or harm to others or
Well,
whatever.
most of us want everybody else to be held accountable, but not us.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something that as a society, we're really down a bad path with that. Yeah. Because
Well, I
too
think,
many people aren't being held accountable. Like your example was perfect. My daughter works in retail and she's worked in multiple places, and it's like they just let people go in and steal because they don't want to deal with it. They're like, we'll just write it off because it's not worth someone getting hurt. And
I deal with
almost
that
like
with
you
bad
gotta think like,
employees.
yeah. And it's
I've dealt with it with bad employees at jobs because,
like,
people don't want to deal with the squeaky wheel. And so, you have to, or you're going to ruin your whole operation, because one bad apple does ruin a whole bunch. Because if
it
you
does.
let one poison everyone else, it will get into their mindset, into their psyche, and they will start to act differently. So I've seen it when I manage companies. You have to deal with, if you're not capable of doing that, then you should not, that's what a leader is, then you should not be in that particular position. And parents right now, I think a lot of parents have, they grow up and they want to give their kids what they were not given. And inadvertently, in doing so, when you're not holding your kids responsible for the ways they behave, like my parents, when I was a kid, they would make me be emotionally responsible. Meaning, if I had an outbreak of emotion, I could have it for a minute to get it out. But if I started to go over what would be an appropriate validation of a feeling, then they made me get control of that. And that was very helpful to me in my life because, if I grow up and I can't be a productive person in society, where did that start?
Yeah. It's almost like people aren't allowed to discharge their emotions because you got to discharge that stuff to get it out. Otherwise, it does become the stuck energy and all the other
It's kind of like what they do to cops. They're like, oh, a cop should have to be, they're going into fight or flight, out, in and out. But when they're in it, they want them to be held responsible when they're in fight or flight, when someone else has triggered it. It's like, okay, well, if you trigger it knowingly that you're doing that, then you're going to have to take the repercussion of that.
Yeah.
Or you should have to take the repercussion of that, right? If you run from the cops and they get the dog out and the dog bites you to take you down, it's not like, they didn't send a dog after you to bite you for no reason, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I think there's a lot that has to be done work-wise in the world with self-awareness. And, instead of like looking at things like from such a black and white standpoint, how do we flow more easily in our lives, in and out of emotions, and how do we learn to manage emotions? I mean, think about it. They teach us all kinds of things in school, but there's not one class on how do I handle my emotions or how do I handle relationships. That would be really beneficial to have in life, wouldn't it?
Would. Yeah, exactly. And how do I empower myself? How do I stand up against a bully? And how to this instead? I always use that thing of like, remember that kid in the class, that one jerk who would like mess up extra recess for everybody or something like that. And then the whole class was held accountable for one kid's actions.
I flipped him over the desk, punched him. wasn't a good. If you were a bully, if you
Yeah.
were bullying or you did stuff,
Yeah.
that would upset me when I was a kid. That
Yep.
injustice used to make me so angry when I
Oh my
was a
gosh,
child.
me too. Because it's like, what the
Hmm.
heck? Why are we all missing out? Because this one kid had to
Yep.
be a jerk. Why isn't this kid being held accountable instead of we all are for actions that we didn't do? That used to
Yeah,
bother.
I had a teacher one time in the 5th grade, and I said to her, "Listen, you either get control of him because he's talking smack about me, or
Yeah.
I'm going to get control of him." And she was like, she just kept on doing what she was doing, and he kept going. And I told her, I said, "I'm telling you, I'm going to punch him in the face." And
Mhm.
then that's where we went.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, I got into the trouble for that. But
Yeah. But yeah, they
yeah,
don't teach us how to be leaders. They don't teach us how to
no,
empower ourselves. And that would be such a good thing, even just with everything in your life, with your personal life, with your family life, with not allowing people in your relationship to abuse you, or in work situations, like you'd said
yeah.
earlier, like back when you and I were working. Yeah, men being just sexual, whatever to women. Yeah,
Oh my
that's
gosh,
a real thing.
they would
Yeah.
say and do horrible things, like,
Oh my, and
you
God
know,
forbid if you were a woman who had a baby, the one company that I worked for, oh my God, like that woman was going nowhere in that company. Every time her kid was sick, oh, did they badmouth her? It was so awful. It was so
that's so sad.
awful. And they would do it to a lot of the women. There was, oh my God, there was one guy that would come in and he was so inappropriate to every woman in there. It was like he was like a part owner and he would always come in drunk, and it was like, oh God, why do they let him even in the building? And they just let it go.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
The
we're
very
not
first
taught
boss
to
I ever
stand in
had.
our power, right? Like, because
Right.
honestly, at the time, I didn't know how to, I'm 20 something year old, woman. I didn't have the tools. I wasn't taught the tools to handle those situations.
I wasn't even taught like that there were toxic people in the world. You know,
Yeah.
like I came from a good family who people were like, if somebody gave you their word, they meant it. It so when I got out into the world, I was so confused because people didn't really match
Mm.
what they, like who they were. Their words and their actions didn't match, and it was very confusing because I just thought that all people were like what I was raised with, and that's not how they were. And it took me a little. It was a harsh learning curve. Let me tell you, I did not know that people grew up in like these traumatic situations where they took that out on other people. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand how people use anger to control you because it puts fear in you. I didn't get all that. So of course I had to learn all those lessons the hard way, but it'd be really cool if they would develop some classes on things like that were very helpful to people when they got out into the real world with the stuff that they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. And well, look, that's now kind of, it seems like your life path is now you're helping
Yes.
those people. I mean, those people have to be
Absolutely.
self-aware originally, but now it's like to help those people. I mean, if you really think about it, it's not just helping those people, it's helping society, it's helping the
Yes.
the quantum field where we're all getting our energy and information from. It's making it a more positive experience for everything, because I do believe that everything has a ripple effect, no matter how big or small.
Well, whether we like to know it or not, every human being on this planet wants to be loved. And we have to learn how to love each other through and around and with having boundaries while holding on to our own
Yep.
personal power. And that's a difficult place to walk. And to me, that is what the love of God is.
Yeah.
He is love. He wants all of us, no matter what we're doing or how we're feeling or how we hurt someone. He wants to love us and walk in love. And we have to learn how to do that.
Yeah, and I think first we need to learn how to love ourselves, and so many of us struggle with that. I mean, if we
Absolutely.
don't love ourselves, how can we be expected to love other people and treat them with compassion and empathy?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we never put the little mask on ourselves.
Yeah, we didn't learn. Yeah, I think learning how to love yourself is so important, and it's a
Yeah. Your
struggle.
identity too.
Struggle because we're really taught that we're flawed when we're really not.
Right.
But then
Right.
we're flawed, and then we act flawed.
Well, we match whatever we hear over and over and over
Yeah,
and over, right?
it's so true. Well, now that you're helping people with all this, what else do we need to know about the quantum biofeedback and the mentoring that you do? Because I love that you're offering both, because I think just, okay, well, these are the frequencies and we're gonna send this out and it's just gonna fix you up. So I love that you add the mentoring on it, because it's almost like an accountability partner or like a coach, you know, in the very, very true sense of the word. And when we find out these things, sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't know that about myself. You know, I sometimes like, wow, I really believe that. And then you think you sit in it and you're like, oh, I guess I did. I thought I was more involved than that.
Yeah, all that matters, and
But
all that makes it helpful for you to grow. And that's the whole bottom line. I'm trying to help people grow into, my little catchphrase is helping you be the best me that you can be by renewing your mind one layer at a time.
so what
Because
is
that's all we can do.
yes, it's so true. So what does working with you look like? So for people that are now
So
interested and they're like, I can't wait to reach out to Michelle. So how does working with you look like?
So the first thing we do is a free consultation, and that'll be about 15 minutes to 30 minutes. It depends, because sometimes people have a lot of different issues and they want to tell me what all they want the consulting or the treatments to be about. And some people just have a little, like they want to focus on one area, and that's a shorter call. So there's a free consultation call. And then we decide from that point, we do one treatment. And we decide at that point whether they want to move forward. I don't pressure people. I don't have like, here, do all these packages. I let people move at the speed that they're able to move at. Somebody may want to do a session today and they may want to do one in, 2 weeks. Some
Okay.
people will say, listen, sometimes I'll make a suggestion, like I see something, I'm like, okay, I feel like 6-8 weeks of this, we could really make some movement. But I try to just see what the person wants first, because again, I'm not into, let me give you 10 packages. I know a lot of people do that and they swear by it, but sometimes that's not what's best for the individual person. And
Okay.
if you make somebody feel pressured like that, they may not want to do it. Whereas I want them to feel free to understand that this is all up to them. How much they want to grow is really up to them. I'm not in this to say, oh, here's a package and I can make a particular amount of money. I really want to see people grow. So whatever that looks like. Sometimes I work with somebody for 6 weeks. Sometimes I've been working with some people for 5 years straight every week.
Oh.
But they're also growing in every area of their life and they want to keep on going. Sometimes it's people who are in really high positions and they need extra energy because they're running these massive companies and they need to work 12 to 14 hours a day. And maybe they're not so much thinking about past traumas as they are, I need this energy to keep me going and to keep, understanding what to do with my future. So everybody's, reasoning is different. And so therefore all treatments are different, whether I work with you for a week, 6 weeks, or years. That's really up to the person. So that's why I like to have the call.
Yeah, and I can't imagine any two people are ever the same. I mean, you're getting
they are not
feedback from I'm sure you probably could never have one.
There's a different path for each person, right? And so I do like to try to leave that, like we do the first session, and then after the first session, we kind of come up with a game plan together, what they're comfortable with and what they want to do.
Perfect.
Which is against everything that normally people do.
I know. Yeah. Usually it's like, I'm going to sign up for like a year-long coaching program with you. And this is what I want to accomplish and all that. So when you have your first session, does that come with some follow-up on that too? Like,
well, what'll happen is I will gather all the information from them. We'll do the first session and then I take a few notes, and after that session, I give them a day or so and we kind of talk again. And then I run it up to them. I say, you let me know. We can do several things. We can pray about it. We can just give the person free. I want people to use their own free will to do what they want to do. There's enough people in the world. We have enough problems. I don't need to push people into doing something they're not ready to do. Because again, this is where collective consciousness is. I don't want to be pressuring somebody who's not ready for something. Sometimes I work with somebody for 2 weeks and then a year or 5 years later, they call me back and they're ready to dive in. But because I didn't pressure them, they're ready to go to that place.
And that makes sense. Yeah. So how can people get a hold of you?
They can go on my website, which it's Michelle. There's two of them, Michelle May, and that's spelled MICHELLEMAE.net, or they can go to Mayday Mentoring or mayday.net, MAEDAE.net.
Okay.
Or you can call me at area code 272 800-8021.
And all of that information will be in the descriptions in case you missed it on whatever platform that you are looking at. Well, Michelle, this was amazing. And I really want to have you back and learn more about all this. And gosh knows that we have about a million other topics that we could cover.
I know. Thank you for having me on today. I just enjoy talking to you every single time we talk. I enjoy our time together.
So fun. We could go down some pretty good rabbit holes, but I tried to respect your time and keep it at about an hour. And I think we're just over now, but that's okay.
Okay.
So I appreciate
Perfect.
all of your time. Please get in touch with Michelle. We will have more from Michelle and her quantum biofeedback machine and her Mayday mentoring. Please look her up, schedule an appointment with her for a free consultation. And thank you again. And I look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much. Bye, Michelle.
Thank you so much. And stay tuned for the next episode of The Wealth Within Us.